Moving on from that, back in the news once again, we've had a lot of heavy reporting. It's actually interesting because the last time we chopped it up, we spoke about the issue of systemic racism within the UK and just around the world. And one of the things that was going on at the time was the, which is still going on, was the Meghan Markle sort of thing. We've seen a whole bunch of uproar since then. We've had different people chime in, from Godfrey to people in the States. Sharon Osbourne, I think she even lost her job on the, one of those shows or something. So
yeah.
Now I don't know where this is stemmed from. We see Priti Patel from the cabinet of the UK a few months back come out and condemn the BLM movement and condemn people marching and stuff like that, and say she would refuse to take a knee. But recently we've seen a report that has come out from the UK, let's see if we can watch this, saying that Britain is no longer a country where systemic racism exists. So it says the system is no longer rigged against ethnic minorities. So one of the things we really got to get into is, which they don't explain, maybe they do, why it was rigged in the first place, if they're saying it isn't now. What?
Well, yeah, that's a point.
The report has been released in.
Well, that's my number one point before I play this clip, because in the context of my whole thing is, I won't say too much, but I'm not gonna get into too much at the backwards and forwards with people, because when we're dealing with people on the planet, it go beyond just some of the nations that we know now. And the thing is, like, on a cosmic and a vibrational level, it's the same. It supersedes that. So when we're dealing with things on a terrestrial level, people can call themselves whatever they want, you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, using terms like black people, ethnic minority, these are blanket labels. They don't really have much validity to me as such. I know what people are inferring by its application. However, it still doesn't underpin what the actual truth is and what the issues are, because if you're going to make a blanket statement and say so-called black people or so-called this people or that people, but we need to really get into who we're targeting and why they're being targeted, because there's more to it. We did an interesting clip the last time before I go on, and it was with that white lady who was speaking about her husband and all that stuff, the foreign one.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny because I followed her on YouTube now. I've actually seen her. She's done a few other little clips. She's done one with her husband as well. She's done one speaking on how she used to be a Karen and stuff as well. And she did another one with her husband where they was just speaking about race and stuff and relationships. But they made a point which I've always kind of inferred to people as well too, because they were saying, okay, well, if you got let's say a white person and a Chinese person, people don't say they're in a mixed race relationship or this, that, or there's certain labels that are only seen to be applied when dealing with so-called black people.
Yeah.
So I just want to say that. So we gotta get into who these so-called black people really is, what's been done and why. But to me that's a wider conversation. But let's see the UK's race report now. This is from Sky
Full.
News.
Not that I'm expecting you've read the whole thing by now, but can you give us a bit more detail as to what's in there?
Well, there are some 260 pages in this.
And so another thing is, I just want to make a point, because I personally, before I scroll through this, I don't particularly think it's going to be anything that has anything in place for the so-called black man as such. It might be more based around others, but let's see.
But the report has been released in full. Not that I'm expecting you've read the whole thing by now, but can you give us a bit more detail as to what's in there?
Well, there are some 260 pages in this report. Probably the most stark of all is what the chair of the report was touching upon there. The fact that this term, institutional racism, is so often used when talking about policing, when talking about education, certain social structures in the UK, but this report has deemed that catch-all term, they call it, is overused, and that they say the term institutional racism just simply shouldn't exist. Not to deny, though, the fact that racism, they do say, does still exist in the UK, but certainly when it comes to institutional racism, what they say of it, put simply, the report says, we no longer see a Britain where the system is deliberately rigged against ethnic minorities. Too often, they go on to say, racism is the catch-all explanation and can be simply implicitly accepted rather than explicitly examined. They found that instead, social class, geography, family structures have more of an impact on people's lives and to what they turn into being and how the system works for them, rather than the existence of racism. But as I say, they're not denying it exists. It's just it could be multifaceted. But we are talking about so many social issues which are directly affected by this report. They delve into education, into policing, into employment factors, and there is so much in here that is left to unpack. But that is probably the most stark revelation so far. Some of the main findings, if I can pick a few out, some saying that academic achievements of children from ethnic minority backgrounds, some of those students actually outperforming their white counterparts. But there is a damning revelation written further into the report that talks about the police. They say the police needs to demonstrate that they are truly a more welcoming organisation, and black communities need to overcome, quote, the legacy of mistrust. So many recommendations have also come from this report, 24 of them in fact. They revolve around things like building trust, promoting fairness, creating agency, and this term, achieving inclusivity. The end goal, I think, from all of this is to create a more accepting society where we are all able to live next door to each other and communicate about these issues in an open way. But there is no doubt that speaking about conversations around race and identity can be very fraught, and I think with this this kind of revelation that they're saying that institutional racism as a term shouldn't be used anymore, a lot of people will have their eyebrows raised by this.
Yeah, so here we see. I wish it played their actual reports. Quite a few interesting points on that. I mean, I find a lot of it funny. I think it's just so funny at this stage in the game is when, you know, people want to sort of admit to some stuff but not really come completely clean, but they want to say, okay, you know, yeah, we're kind of mistreating people and stuff, but, you know, I think it's time to build a society where we all can live next door to each other and feel like that ain't gonna happen, you know. That ain't me, you know. That false idealism, I don't believe in, and I believe if it was something that they had wanted to sort of happen from a functioning society, there's more that could have been and would have been done to make that happen, you know.
But let's unpack that one for a little bit, like for what you just said there, because obviously, like, when you in certain inner city urban communities, it can be like that. You can have, like, you know, white guys next door, Asian family, black families, like, all living in close vicinities with each other, right?
I mean, of course, that's
but the term white flight, that comes from them fleeing whenever, like, you know, large amounts of ethnic minorities move into their area.
Well, I mean,
you know, they be fleeing.
Yeah, I get that, but I mean, to kind of touch on that, because one thing I want to completely dispel, and that's not me saying quote unquote communities don't exist, but in terms of where I've been around, and I've lived in, you know, suburban areas and city areas and stuff, and yes, in the UK there are areas where you have different nationalities of people within the same community, but a lot of times they're still very separate, or they're still, you know, for instance, you go some areas and if it's a highly proportioned community of one nation of people, generally there may not be that much beefs or altercations sometimes as such. People sort of assimilate to a degree, but people keep their own separate cultures. Most of the time people keep their own economics, people keep their own, there's not anything that's done to me it's BS, to be honest. Like, in society there's some things that people do as a collective, but it's mainly for the benefit of themselves or the people that they can benefit with it or that they're working with. I don't think enough is done, even holistically, to say, oh, well, we're doing this to reach or to include everybody, because what we've seen is nothing but ball hugging, and that ain't even just from, you know, I ain't even holding up just English people for it, because other people do the same thing. And that's why even when I speak on racism and systemic racism and stuff, yeah, we do know the function of white supremacy. However, it isn't just so-called white people that are practitioners of racism. Other nations practice the same thing too. We've seen
most nations
in America, especially when it comes to so-called blacks. So we've seen in America recently a lot of the uproar with people going out and attacking other members of different communities and stuff. And, you know, some people made a point, we're always there to speak up on injustice and racism to do with anybody. Doesn't matter who they are, but when it comes to do with us, it's not necessarily, the same. So as we see, even with a report like this, how many people have been, locked up over the years, been made to feel crazy? How many people have been ostracized? How many people have been, systematically subdued? Even just suggesting that some of these things existed, and over the years that they would have said don't exist, that people say, oh no such thing. Now they're saying, okay, well maybe, it did exist, or maybe, but it's no longer like that. To me, it's sort of like the fallacy that they try to attribute with the erroneous MLK I Have a Dream speech. And I'm not saying it was erroneous by MLK, but erroneous in the context of they sell it to us now that we, people are supposed to live in the mindset like it was achieved, or that sort of state of living was achieved, and everybody's sort of at that point of understanding, which is what she sort of alluded to. Can it happen? To be honest, I see a lot more people nowadays going for separation and stuff.
If you look at the stats for employment and how black and brown people, however well qualified, hit a glass ceiling when it comes to promotion.
You can see that in the
look at the stats related to the criminal justice system, which my colleague David Lammy did in great detail, and he was quite clear about the institutional racism in the criminal justice system.
Yeah, peace to David Lammy. He's been working for years.
Yeah, I like Lammy.
And it's as if this commission, which was set up by the Tories and by leading Tory advisors who don't believe in institutional racism at all, it's as if it's taking us back in the argument for racial justice, not taking us forward.
So we see people.
We're joined live now by Keith Fraser, Commissioner for the Commission.
He looked like a commissioner for the commission. I didn't want to hear what that dude got to say. So we've seen that, it's been reported that campaigners have stepped up from all around and have said that it's just another attempt at whitewashing. What do you think of that, man?
Yeah. And you know what? As well as the campaigners. What you say, my bro?
Oh, I was just saying, there we see our beloved roles.
Oh,
the beloved couple. Gotta love them.
But as well as the campaigners coming out and saying what they're saying, you've also got the guy, I can't remember his name now, man, for the life of me. The race relations guy, he kind of deals with the Tories and helps with race relations and that. He's quit his job because he's like, no, you guys are bullshitting. This is BS. Yeah. So he's even quit his job today because of it. Because he's like, nah, you lot are bullshitting. You know that this institutional racism exists. You're trying to pass it off and say, oh, racism exists, but not institutional racism. So what? So
keep going, yeah. Could you try to? Sorry,
yeah.
I just had a brainwave, but keep going.
So you're saying racism exists, but not institutional racism. Okay. So if racism exists, that means there are people within the institutions who are also racist. Like, so if they are still racist and they're within the institution, then they're within, the police, they're within the court system, they're within the schools, in all these areas of human activity, then therefore institutional racism is still going to be alive and well because those people are still going to be there as well.
They're
you know what I mean? It's not just the guy down the street that calls you a black cunt or something that's racist. Of course. You know what I mean? It's not just him.
Well, it's like you said that they're playing with semantics, and that's where I had my brainwave come from. Because I was thinking the one thing that coincides and puts all these conversations was having together, even though these are specific, sort of separate topics, you're always gonna have that polarity of good and evil, wicked and righteousness, God and the devil. No, so I always tell people pick a side. They gotta be on one side. There ain't no half stepping sometimes when it comes to these things. And I feel as though at this stage in the game, not to get too prophetic, but there's some that say they find these times eerily similar to the book of Revelations or other books. Now people have said that many times over the years because I feel the world moving a cycle a certain type of way. But I feel as though at this stage of the game, just when we look at just all the different things going on, and then able to put them together and just see how they're all functioning. It's just so interesting that, as you said, there's people that still exist with those mindsets and mentalities. They've tried to avoid it and deny it for so long. Now they want to kind of make a false or blanket admittance to it, but then, you know, sort of negate its actuality at the same time. You know, I think they're playing with words, and that was one of the things why I had that brainwave, because I was saying, who plays with words the most? The devil, you know, the master of manipulation, the master of lies, the master of, you know, and we deal with that same mentality and thought process. You know, one of the things I was reading on this, it says they're making plans which calls for a new inclusive schooling curriculum where people will be taught a new story about the Caribbean experience, which speaks to the slave.
Oh, I heard about this as well, man.
Now the thing is, we're looking at a reimagination of so-called history. You know what I mean?
That is what they're trying to do, man. How did I hear it? I heard it as like they were trying to basically sort of repackage the story of slavery and sell it and say that it was something to do with like a cultural trade-off.
That's what they're gonna try and do. You look at this. Look at it. I recommend people to check this documentary out at some time. Now this is a rare 1980s documentary. Now that's actually me right there. So when anybody check this out, this was an initiative that was started years ago in Handsworth. Now, if people could go out there, you know, there's a link out here where you can support, you know, to keep this center open. But the reason I brought this up, because the reason why this center was even set up at the time was to give people a true teaching and depiction to a degree of their history and, you know, their cultural identity and stuff like that. So this isn't nothing new. So when they're saying that they're trying to do that, it's not like people haven't been doing that. It says they want to teach a new story. So they want to change and kind of put a spin on it, like you were saying, and come up with some different it sounds like a passive, like, you know, they want to pacify people with a story. Yeah, it sounds like something that's going to be pacification. Now, I'm not against it in the sense of if they say, okay, well, we want to open up our stuff now. To me, it's too late. There's some things. I'm a different kettle of fish. Like, there's some things I won't do. I got my principles, you know. I won't bow to certain people, especially if I know you don't like me. And that's me. I'd have been like that from day one. I'd almost be like that. I just showed you the clip of me as a child, so ain't nothing like put on with me. I done been brought up on black issues, you know, no choice. You know, that's about not just on the outside, but on the inside, and on the, you know, mind, body, spirit, all of that. So it's like the thing is, you know, I feel as though in this time now people be trying to. It's kind of like, you know, let's say somebody had a cookout for. Every weekend they're having a barbecue, they're having a cookout, but you can never get a look in. You never invite them. You know, but then when all the coal burning up and, you know, all the food running out and all this and everything.
Now they want
even if we're looking at the times we're in now, that's the chaos. Everything got to, you know. Now you want to invite folks to the cook. Now you want to, oh yeah, it's cool. You know, you can now you can get a look in our dance. You know what I mean? Now we can.
So basically, trying to give man the scraps is what you're saying.
You know, put it in that term. You know what I mean?
Try to throw man a bone and that.
That's how I see it. You know, I think looking at it in that term. Now the thing is, you know, and that's the thing. It's like we're making more light on this because the crazy thing is these are conversations that we sort of speak on quite frequently in other ways. So it's like, you know, it's nothing new. I just find it quite interesting now that a lot of this conversation is more being had amidst the UK, and, you know, I think what it is people know they're getting put on blast, and we're whooping their asses right now in the media. They're getting their asses whooped.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
They get their asses whooped left, right, and center in the media. This thing worldwide, and, you know, some of us out here that we fighting the Most High fight, and we whooping their asses spiritually too, and at the same time, you know, when it comes to this, ain't like one stage where people was getting away with stuff. Now they're getting put on blast. You see all the, you know, the socials, the Karens getting put on blast. You see, you know, people in the stores, they're getting put on blast. You know, people getting, you know. So now they know, okay, they ain't too much, and they'll be able to hide ish like they could before. They're gonna get put on blast. And now, just like this, they've tried to address this because, you know, they got put on blast from the Meghan Markle thing. I got people outside of the UK and other places looking in. I did a podcast last year, actually, 2020, with Keith Snyder. Shouts out to Keith. So this was for Keith Snyder's Anxiety Against Anxiety podcast, and he, you know, we spoke on, he had a different division called Our Black Voices Matter, and I was one of the only, you know, guys coming from a UK perspective, you know, just speaking on anxiety, certain treatments, and the mentality and sometimes the disposition that's formed by people living in hostile environments and stuff like that. So when I spoke about it from the UK perspective, we actually had some people in the comments that was, hey, you know, we don't agree, and the UK is not like that. Oh, you just, you know. So when more things happen like this, it is putting them on blast. So that's why I feel like they came with this report to sort of try and nullify that where they can. There's so much stuff going on, you know, and they're saying, well, you know, with UK police under fire, Boris Johnson pushes new bill that could end peaceful protests. Yeah, I think the world gonna be locked down soon. That's where they're trying to go. They're trying to use a lot of these things for you know, further lockdown.
I think you could be right there.
I'm just going through a bit of this report, some statistics. It says 64% of nurses and doctors that died in the NHS were black or from an ethnic minority. And that's what I'm saying. They were black, really. It seems like a lot of things are targeted towards so-called black, but then they throw this ethnic minority term. To be honest, I don't know what an ethnic minority is, you know. I don't know what an ethnic minority is, you know.
What do they mean by that term?
I don't know, to be honest. I'm gonna put it out there, because to be honest, that ethnic minority term was one term, a label term for so-called blacks. So now it includes others. But to keep it a buck, some of those others are even a majority over us in some areas. So, like if you live in let's say a predominantly Somali area, there gonna be loads of them.
Yeah, it's true. That's the point.
If you live in a Romanian area, there's loads of them. If you live in there ain't this kind of blanket that they, I guess, putting people into. That's why it says black or ethnic minority.
Or ethnic minority, yeah.
It's black. That's
because, as you say, they used to label us as ethnic minorities.
Exactly.
But now,
that's
when they say ethnic minorities, they separate us from it. So it's black or ethnic minority. Like so,
the ethnic minority is, I think, is a representation of what they would class as maybe the non-whites or something, or the non.
Now they got that new term. What's that new term? BAME.
Oh yeah, BAME. Yeah, I've had that for a while. Yeah.
What's that one even mean? What's that? How's that break down?
Black, Asian, or something, minority, or something. Black and black or something foolishness. You know, let's see actually. Let's get a full meaning of BAME. Black, Asian, and minority ethnic. Yeah, that's what like, it's like, how random, you know what I mean? Black, Asian, and minority ethnic. So you see, for minority ethnic, you see even BAME includes any mixed. So you know, I don't know if even some Eurasians they may put in there. You know what I mean? That's why they're doing this census and all that sort of stuff now. But I'd recommend people to check out the root races. The root races of man, and you can check out just how man in a sense revolves through different races, how it's been, you know, epochs through different periods of time. So cause that's one of my things. I really think we're dealing with a lot of different kind of people and beings down there. Now I know we get this thing where everybody say we're all the same and stuff, you know, to a degree, but not everything is the same, you know. So I don't take that either, you know. Yep. everything isn't the same, you know. You ain't the same as me.
It's true.
I'm with both black, so what does that mean? So, you know, at the end of the day, everything isn't the same. I'm not getting into all of that. Yeah, we breathe the same sort of air and the same, you know, there's I believe in the ultimate omnipotent creator that created everything, even, you know, every kind of aspect, but everything isn't the same. Just like a dog isn't a cat, and a cat isn't a rat.
For real. And then even within dogs, they still got different breeds. You know what I'm saying?
That's praise the Lord. That's a mighty mighty world that was made. So yeah, I think when we get into these misnomers, cause that's why I like these labels right now. But misnomers, you know, displaced people. That's why I said it that clip before. We gotta really get into who people is and what's going on. I just want the truth, you know. I don't hold no grudges, but we gotta get to the truth, because who are these so-called people on either end? We kind of keep putting terms on people, you know. We gotta really get into it, and yeah, that's how I feel about that part.
I feel you.
I condemn the actions of a lot of the people out here, and let that be known, because as much as they say some of this stuff doesn't exist, it has. They may be trying to ease out of it now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they may be trying to ease out of it now, but to me it's different. And to me, like, I may sound biased, but when the argument kind of goes to a different aspect that doesn't deal with, especially a lot of our people, I can't really take it that seriously, you know. Not to negate anybody else's issues and stuff, but you know, most people, they sit back when we've been going through our struggles and stuff. They don't stand up, have nothing to say. So
I feel you.
Emma Dabiri, the academic and author of What White People Could Do Next. Good to see you this morning. Look, in the wake of what we've seen of this report,
yeah, we see a lot of people around.
Can white people do next?
Good morning. So the name of the book is something of a provocation. It's kind of what society in many ways can do next to change the gross inequalities that still play out along racialized lines. It's not to say that there is absolutely, no progress in terms of race. I don't see a paradox, I don't see a contradiction between saying that there's progress in some degree.
Yeah, she taking too long to get to a point, but guys, y'all can check that out at some point. You can see like, I know what she said about the progress, but it is a paradox. She right, it is a paradox, and there has been slight progress. I'll end on this note, because I will say that the changes and the better work that's been done has been on a ground level amidst the people. So I say that to say this, because not everybody, just like we mentioned earlier, can be condemned into the same category as everybody else, even to their group. So obviously, from a systemic and a high level standpoint, we're dealing with a malicious kind of 10%, if we're looking at it even just in a mathematical level. So the thing is, I'd say a lot of people on the ground level, even though you still have your bigots and stuff, there are a lot of people on the ground level that have really kind of stepped up or worked on themselves, and just trying to get on with life and that, and treat people decent and fair enough. So I say props due to those ones, and those are just people on the ground level, just normal everyday people. So shouts out to people like that, because like that lady was just saying quickly, there are some progresses, and they're the ones that are helping make the progress.
I feel you.
Yeah, so with that being said, man, we're gonna wrap this one up, man. Fam, let us know you guys' thoughts and stuff in these comments. Stay up, stay woke, and always stay looking out for your folks. You dig with that, dude? Yeah, bro, that's that's